Introduction, sometimes it's not about chasing someone's attention. It's about becoming the kind of person whose absence is deeply felt. Real connection isn't created through games, but through self-worth, emotional intelligence, and presence that lingers even when you're gone. Here's how to build that kind of impact in a healthy, powerful way. Emotional independence is the foundation of becoming truly unforgettable in someone's life because it shifts your energy from neediness to strength. When a person is emotionally dependent, every action they take is driven by fear of loss, fear of silence, or fear of not being chosen. That kind of energy becomes heavy and predictable, and it slowly pushes people away instead of drawing them closer. On the other hand, when you are emotionally independent, you carry yourself with a calm certainty that does not shake when someone is present or absent. You stop measuring your worth through replies, attention, or constant reassurance, and instead you begin to understand that your value exists even in silence. This state of mind allows you to respond instead of react. You don't overthink every delay or absence, and you don't chase explanations for things that don't deserve emotional exhaustion. That inner stability naturally creates attraction because it feels rare in a world where most people are emotionally reactive. A man begins to notice that you are not easily disturbed, not easily controlled, and not easily available at the expense of your own peace. Emotional independence also changes the way you love. You still care deeply, but you don't lose yourself in that care. You give affection without attachment to outcomes, and you express feelings without expecting constant validation in return. This balance makes your presence feel lighter and more powerful at the same time. When someone experiences your energy from this place of self-control and inner grounding, they subconsciously register you as someone valuable and stable, not someone who can be taken for granted or easily replaced. And over time, your absence creates space for reflection, curiosity, and emotional awareness that was never forced or demanded. Creating a life that feels full without someone else is one of the strongest ways to naturally increase your value in any relationship dynamic. When your happiness depends on a single person, your world becomes small, and that smallness to reflect in your behavior. You begin to wait instead of live, overanalyze instead of experience, and prioritize one connection above everything else. This creates emotional pressure that often pushes the other person away because it places them at the center of your entire emotional universe. But when your life is built with purpose, variety, and personal direction, your energy changes completely. You are no longer someone who is waiting for attention or approval because your days already have meaning. You wake up with goals, interests, responsibilities, and passions that give structure to your time. This makes your presence feel lighter and more attractive because you are not relying on anyone to feel complete. A fulfilling life includes growth in different areas, whether it is education, career, fitness, creativity, or social connection. These elements keep your identity strong and expanding, so your personality does not revolve around one emotional attachment. When you are busy becoming a better version of yourself, you naturally become more interesting to others without trying to force it. People are drawn to those who have their own direction because it signals confidence and stability. It shows that your happiness is not fragile or dependent on constant attention. Instead of being consumed by one connection, you bring freshness into it because you have experiences, stories, and energy that come from a wider life. Over time, this creates a powerful effect where your absence does not feel like emptiness caused by dependency, but rather a noticeable gap in something meaningful and alive that you were contributing to. Naturally, communication becomes powerful when it is used with intention rather than excess, because overavailability slowly reduces emotional impact. When someone is always reachable, always explaining, and always filling silence with messages, their presence starts to feel expected rather than valued. The mind adapts quickly to consistency, and what feels constant is often taken for granted over time. That is why meaningful communication is not about how much you say, but about how carefully you choose when and what to say. When you speak less but with clarity, your words start to carry more weight, Each message feels deliberate. Each conversation feels more present. And each interaction leaves more room for thought. Silence between conversations is not a weakness. It creates space for reflection. In that space, people start to think about what you said, how you made them feel, and what your absence actually means in their daily rhythm. Being less reactive in communication also changes how you are perceived. Instead of responding instantly to every moment of attention or emotional shift, you learn to respond from calm awareness. This prevents emotional exhaustion and keeps your energy balanced. It also prevents the dynamic where one person is constantly giving attention while the other simply receives it without effort. When communication is meaningful rather than constant, it becomes memorable. People begin to notice your absence, not because you are playing games, but because your presence was not diluted by overexposure. Your words linger longer, your silence becomes noticeable, and your energy feels more defined. Over time, this creates a natural sense of curiosity and emotional awareness in others because they are no longer overwhelmed by constant access to you and instead are left with moments that actually stay in their mind and shape how they perceive your value, self-respect, and boundaries are the quiet forces that determine how others treat you, because people unconsciously adjust their behavior based on what you accept and what you refuse. When you lack boundaries, you often tolerate inconsistency, mixed signals, or emotional neglect, hoping that patience alone will change the situation. But over time, this creates imbalance where your needs are minimized and your presence becomes something that is only acknowledged when convenient for the other person. When you develop self-respect, your choices start reflecting clarity instead of confusion. You stop explaining your worth to people who repeatedly overlook it, and you stop staying in situations that require you to shrink your expectations. Boundaries are not about pushing people away. They are about defining what is acceptable in your emotional space. They communicate that your time, energy, and feelings are not open for misuse. This shift changes everything about your presence. Instead of being seen as someone who will always adjust, you become someone who stands firm without hostility. You don't chase to be understood. You observe who naturally respects your standards. This naturally filters your relationships, allowing only healthier dynamics to remain. Self-respect also changes how you respond to inconsistency. You no longer overinvest in situations where effort is one-sided. Instead of trying harder to fix imbalance, you step back and allow actions to reveal reality. This creates emotional strength because your peace is no longer dependent on someone else's behavior. Over time, people begin to recognize that your presence is not guaranteed and your energy is not easily accessible without genuine effort. This awareness often leads to deeper appreciation because what is not constantly available is valued more consciously when it is experienced again. People don't form deep attachment to constant presence alone. They form it to how someone makes them feel. Emotional memory is far stronger than physical proximity, which is why certain individuals remain in your thoughts long after they are gone. If your presence consistently creates comfort, laughter, motivation, or a sense of emotional ease, it leaves a lasting imprint that the mind naturally returns to in moments of silence or reflection. Being someone who creates positive emotional experiences does not mean being perfect or always entertaining. It means being genuine, grounded, and emotionally present in a way that feels safe and real. When someone feels understood around you, when conversations feel effortless, or when your energy brings calm instead of confusion, those moments become psychologically stored as emotional reference points. Over time, these experiences build a connection that is not easily replaced by new interactions. Even when distance is created, the mind tends to revisit emotional highlights rather than forget them. That is why people often miss not just the person, but the way they felt in their presence. It is the emotional atmosphere you bring that becomes unforgettable, not just the words you speak or the time you spend together. Consistency and positive emotional impact also strengthens this effect. When someone associates you with relief from stress, genuine attention, or moments of happiness during difficult times, Your presence becomes mentally linked to emotional comfort. This creates a natural pull even in your absence, because the brain seeks familiar emotional patterns that felt rewarding or meaningful. In the long run, what stays is not effort that felt forced, but experiences that felt natural and emotionally significant, shaping how deeply your presence is remembered and valued over time. Knowing when to step back is one of the most misunderstood forms of emotional strength, because it is often mistaken for playing games when in reality it is about self-awareness and timing. Staying in places where your value is not recognized or where effort is consistently one-sided slowly weakens your emotional presence. Overexposure in the wrong dynamic can turn even strong connections into something routine, where your absence is no longer noticed because your presence was never fully appreciated. Stepping back creates distance, and distance naturally creates perspective. When you are no longer constantly available, people are given space to reflect on what your presence actually meant in their life. In daily interaction, emotions can be taken for granted because familiarity reduces awareness. But when that familiarity is interrupted, the mind starts to reassess value, memories, and emotional impact in a more honest way. This does not mean withdrawing out of spite or silence as punishment. It is about recognizing when your energy is being invested without balance and choosing to redirect it toward yourself. That redirection builds self-respect and restores emotional clarity because you are no longer trying to force connection where effort is not mutual. Healthy distance also reveals truth. It shows who reaches out with genuine intention and who was only comfortable with convenience. In that space, real priorities become visible without pressure or explanation. You are no longer competing for attention. You are observing who values your presence enough to notice its absence. Over time, this practice strengthens your emotional identity. You become someone who does not cling to situations out of fear of being forgotten, but someone who understands that real connection does not disappear simply because space was created, and that genuine value is recognized even in silence. The real goal isn't to make someone cry over you. It's to become someone who is genuinely remembered, respected, and valued. When you focus on growth, self-respect, and emotional maturity, missing you becomes a natural result, not a forced outcome.